Well, hang on there. That's a matter of opinion. I live on the right side of the Pennines.
Hello and welcome to the Strummercamp video podcast. The Strummercamp Music Festival is held every year in Greater Manchester in the north of England. Strummercamp has grown to become one of the friendliest small music festivals in the UK. Details on how to buy tickets for next year's festival can be found on their website, strummercampfestival.com, or on their Facebook page, Strummercamp Festival Official. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and why not send the link to the podcast to your family or friends around the world. It's all about spreading the love, scampers. If you would like to support this channel and make it possible to produce more video podcasts, you can make a donation at Buy Me a Coffee using the QR code on the screen now or via the link in the description below. In this podcast, I'm talking to Carol Hodge, a seven-fingered, piano-pounding, Yorkshire-dwelling singer-songwriter. Carol has been described as one of the most innovative solo artists around right now. I would describe her as a no-nonsense, non-stop musical workaholic. For more information, check out her website at carolhodge.co.uk. So let's jump straight into the podcast. Hello, Carol. Thank you for coming to do this podcast and interview at Strummercamp.
Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
That's great. You've already been on stage, haven't you?
Yeah, it was great fun. Good crowd, yeah. And as I pointed out, we're not a punk band at all. So I can do whatever I want with my own music. So we did. So it was kind of a proggy, poppy, rocky, vaguely punky, some metal riffs in there as well.
Excellent. You're already jumping ahead of my questions there. So for the viewers that might not know who Carol Hodge is, who is Carol Hodge and the group, and what type of music do you?
Yeah. So I always describe myself as a seven-fingered piano-playing singer-songwriter from Huddersfield, which is what I do. So sometimes I play solo, which is just me and a piano, and other times I play with my band, which is bass, drums, guitar synth, and me, and a piano and a synth. And people might have seen me play with Steve Ignorant, the founder of the band Crass. So I play in Steve Ignorant's Slice of Life, which is like his acoustic project, and I also am currently on tour with him, performing the songs of Crass around the world. So that's another thing that I do, and I'm also on tour with Ginger Wildheart, the singer from the Wildhearts. So that's kind of doing acoustic versions of Wildheart songs and playing a set of my songs as well. So busy as usual, yeah. So this is actually a luxury moment because you sat down. Yeah, I actually sat down, not about to go on stage or driving to a gig. So that's quite a special moment.
So you've been in the industry a long time, your experience. Do you still get butterflies before you go on stage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do know some performers who get really bad stage fright, which is very difficult to navigate. But yeah, I do still get a bit nervous, especially if it's the first gig of a tour or like, a really big one-off sort of festival or something. I was all right today because the stagehands were so organised. Like they brought my stuff on for me, and I was like, "Oh,
it's
like
Strummercamp, we are."
It's great, yeah.
Is this your first time at Strummercamp?
Yeah, with performing with my music, I guested on a couple of songs with a band about 12 years ago when it was in Cheadle. But yeah, it's my first performance with the Carol Hodge band.
So, obviously, you live on the wrong side of the Pennines.
Oh, well, hang on there. That's a matter of opinion. I live on the right side of the Pennines.
Although you're in the middle, really, aren't you? Because you're in a bit of a valley there, and it's
Wild West Yorkshire, yeah.
So okay, it's just Carol Hodge country. We won't call it Yorkshire.
Hodgelandia.
So why did Carol become a musician?
That's a good question. It's just something I've always loved doing. I begged my parents for keyboard lessons when I was 8. Saved up all my pocket money and bought a proper 4-octave full-size keyboard. And it's just something I've always loved doing. I've always loved singing, always loved playing piano. And then I think I probably wrote my first song when I was about 8 or 9, and then just loved doing that. So obviously just did it more and more over the years. Got in my first band when I was 15. Started writing songs for that and doing covers as well. And it's just my favourite thing to do in the world.
I'd just like to say to the listeners, we are at Strummercamp and the bar is above us. So if they do hear people, the microphones are good. They shouldn't pick us up. You and I can hear who they are. And we can hear in the background Black Boulder playing. So can I ask you about playing the keyboard?
Yeah.
You've got an obvious...
Yeah, 7 fingers. Cleft type brachydactyly, to be precise.
You can't say that after you've had a drink.
Yeah. Easy for me to say, yeah.
Did that bring up any difficulties for you when you're playing a full keyboard?
Well, I was with my limb difference. I always feel very fortunate in that I was born with it. So it's all I've ever known. So particularly when I was a kid, if I wanted to do something, nobody ever said to me, you can't do that. So I feel quite grateful for that. So it's just something I've always done. And with regards to, basically with piano playing, a lot of the time you would play a chord with your left hand, so you'd maybe hold down 3 notes or 4 notes at the same time.
You are talking to someone that's not got a musical bone in his body.
Well, and then your right hand would play more melody lines. So obviously I can't really do that. I can hold down 2 notes, but what I do instead is I play root notes with my left hand. I play like bass notes, and I do more sort of like movement. So I'll play like a bass riff instead of just holding the chords. I'll kind of be a bit more creative with it. And then obviously in the context of a band, my role becomes less significant because there's other instruments filling out the sound. But when I play just me and a piano, I have to be like quite creative with how I accompany myself to make it sound as good as I can make it sound. So yeah.
So is it hard work?
I don't think so. No, it's good fun. I mean, it is hard work. I mean, learning an instrument and getting good at it requires a lot of time and effort. But that's what life's about. It's about finding hard work that you enjoy, isn't it?
So do you rehearse lots?
Yeah, right. I do. Yeah.
In fact, I was talking to a band earlier today, and I was asking them about how they find when they come up with an inspiring link, or do they start with the tune, or do they start with the lyrics, and how do they fill it out? And
so writing a song, So I write the songs for my band and for my solo project. I write them all myself, and I tend to start with an idea, like a vague idea of something, and I tend to just sit there and go over and over until something clearer forms. What's happened over the years is what used to happen is a song would kind of fully form lyrics, vocal melody and accompaniment at the same time, so like the chord structure and the words and the melody would all kind of emerge together, whereas now I tend to go back and do the lyrics, because I'll get the vocal melody and the chords together, but then I want to refine the words a little more these days. So it tends to be like a 2-step process with going back and doing that and seeing if I can get them as good as I can. Because
I'm fascinated, because I'm a visual person. I see everything in a visual way.
Yeah.
And then speaking to musicians and songwriters about how they come a song, do you see it, or do you just hear it and you know that fits in and works? Or?
Yeah, it's like I hear it in my head, and I used to think that inspiration would strike, and then that's when the song would appear. But I've realised that it's a discipline, and it's work, and it's the more you turn up and sit there and attempt to write, the more songs you will get, even if they're not the best songs in the world. You're still improving your process through just dedicating yourself to it, really. And it feels like now the way I think about inspiration and ideas, it's like a tap you can turn on. So you need to create the conditions to turn the tap on and be ready to catch what comes out. But you can do that at any point. You just need to keep showing up and doing it more and more. So
where do you get your inspiration from?
A lot of my songs, I joke that I write about my continuing existential crisis, but it's true. I'm very much. I don't write love songs. I don't really write.
You're not
romantic.
Don't
feel sorry for me. No, I am romantic, and I love love, and but I tend to write about what's going on in my head, and I feel that that's kind of my strength as a songwriter is that I'm able to take things that have actually happened to me and, things that are happening in my brain. I write a lot about sort of mental health, like my own mental health, but coming at it from an angle that's hopefully relatable to other people without being too depressing. I kind of like things to be a little bit, I like there to be a journey, to a song or to an album that I write where it's not all doom and gloom. There's moments of poignancy, but there's also moments of humour and absurdism, because that's, to me, what life is. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's surreal. How can you take existence seriously?
So you've been on stage. Mm-hmm. Are you relaxed now?
Yeah, I feel great. Yeah.
And so how do you relax in general? I mean, have you got any hobbies outside of work? Because is this work? Are you 9 to 5 or 24/7, or is it just rock and roll?
No, this is what I do for my living. Yeah. So being a musician is my life. Yeah. Well, when you caught me earlier, I was eating a lentil dal. So that's one of the things I like to do after a show is eat, because I don't tend to eat before a gig. Partly due to nerves, but also partly due to obviously singing properly. You use a lot of, you need to use your diaphragm, and there's a lot of quite intense songs that I sing that require a lot of volume and a lot of projection. So if I've just eaten a heavy meal, that's quite an arduous task.
You can't have a jalfrezi before you go on stage.
No. I mean, I could, but I'd be very sluggish and I'd probably have a lot of acid reflux and struggle to sing. So,
Today, audience, I'm sitting down and talking to you.
Yeah. So I do that. I mean, I don't drink alcohol anymore, so I don't do that. I'm always driving, so I just tend to just chill out, eat, and maybe just watch what other bands are on. So yeah.
You've been in the industry so long now. What particular thing have you found out about the industry that you would have thought that surprised you?
Oh yeah, it's my job now, I do it full time. I realise I do about 6 different jobs. So obviously I'm a songwriter, and then I rehearse a lot, and I'm currently in 4 different projects. So I rehearse a lot at home on my own for all of those, and then obviously meet with the other musicians, rehearse with them. I book all my own gigs. I do all my own promotion. I run my own record label. So I kind of do everything, and it is various different people's jobs, really. So
we're getting back to the point that we're really lucky to have you here and sat down and relaxed and not...
I'm not working for once, yeah. I think, that's the thing that surprised me the most is how much is actually involved in doing it yourself, but also that, especially now, it is possible to do it all yourself. And I am somebody who likes to spin a lot of plates. I like to be stimulated. I like to have variety. I like to be able to dictate what I do with my own time. So in a lot of ways, this is the perfect job for me. And it's also, very liberating to know. I read something earlier today, actually. It was a really good point about how if you want to achieve whatever you want to do in life, think about it on a longer time scale. Think about achieving it in a decade's time rather than this time next year, and you'd be amazed at what you actually can accomplish. And I thought, I've been doing, not this particular project, but I've been a live musician for 25 years. And there's still loads more I want to do. So my idea now is I want longevity in my career. I want to be performing when I'm 70. So it's quite a lovely thought to think, well, hopefully, God willing, I've got another 30 years of doing this and getting better at being a musician and getting better at being a writer and doing everything. Thinking really long term.
You are in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
So
hopefully.
Have you set out a 5-year plan, or how are you going to evolve? How do you imagine you're going to evolve?
Well, I have various ideas and, lofty ambitions of where I want to be, but it's all very much one small step at a time. That's how I approach things now. When I was younger, I was very starry-eyed and I was hoping I'd be plucked from obscurity and, given a record deal and, taking, the things you want when you're a teenager. You want to be a star.
We were all teenagers once.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now I'm I'm really fortunate to have built up to a certain level that hopefully if I just keep producing good music and keep producing a good live show, that you know, my audience will keep growing a little bit with every album and with every tour, and just approaching it that way, just really like very realistically and very sort of like ground level of how do you do that, how do you get people on board, the people who like my music, how do I keep in touch with them, basically, is a lot of what it's about.
So you mentioned 4 projects. Can you just tell us a little bit about what those projects are, or are they hush hush?
No, it's iterations of what I do. So there's me solo, just singing with a piano. There's the Carol Hodge band. There's Slice of Life that I do with Steve Ignorant, and there's the Crass band that I do with Steve Ignorant, the Ignorant band. And I'm also doing the tour with Ginger, which is sometimes me on my own, and sometimes I perform with a guy called Ben Marsden. So we do some of his songs, some of my songs. We also do a Chaz and Dave cover, which is very important. And then I'm also performing on some of the Wild Heart songs as well on that tour. So I guess that's 5 different projects.
I'm not going to ask you about hobbies or anything like that, because you've got no chance, have you?
Oh no, yeah, I like I do a lot of yoga, and I like hiking and walking. I like being out in nature. I'm a bird watcher as well. So yeah, that's kind of the things I do.
Twitcher.
I see. I call myself more of an active birder. Which makes no sense at all. But I wouldn't like go and sit in a hide for 3 hours with a flask of tea. But I love walking, and I love knowing what birds are what, and what bird calls relate to which bird. And I take my binoculars with me sometimes, and I just like, yeah.
So you would be quite impressive. We'd be walking and you saying, and that's a chaffinch.
Yeah. I could tell you a lot about
magpie,
birds. Yeah.
Crow. Excellent. So, are you on social media?
Of course. Yeah.
Are you on TikTok?
No.
I don't agree with TikTok.
No.
CCP.
Well, it's not that I don't agree with it. I just don't have the time. I'm just like, so I've got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where I'm quite active on all 3 of those. I do have a YouTube channel, which I need to spend more time on because it's kind of a bit dormant at the moment. I've got like 5 or 6 like official music videos on there. But yeah, to be honest, it's something I need to pick up the slack on with the new album that I've recorded, because I've not released any music videos for it yet, because I've just procrastinated, which is another thing I'm really good at. I'd say that's another hobby of mine, procrastination.
I'm not having that. You do so much. There's no way you got time to procrastinate about anything. So you got a new album coming out?
Well, I've got one out now. So it came out a couple of months ago. Vertiginous Drops, which a lot of people tell me is a new word for them, vertiginous. So
it's a new word for me. Coming
from vertigo. So vertiginous is like the what's the word? Like adjective of vertigo. So vertiginous is like vertigo-inducing drops. So the idea of it being you're up so high that to look over the edge of wherever you are in life induces vertigo. So.
What number album is this?
4th, yeah. So it's my 4th solo album. Yeah.
And is it a definite evolution between the 4?
I think so. Yeah, I think on this album, I feel like I've taken a few more risks in terms of the songwriting, in terms of the sound. I work with a producer called Dave Draper, who's done quite a lot of big rock acts, and on this album, I've got quite a few guests as well. So I've got Ginger Wildheart, he sings on a song. Carvis Tarabi, who was in the Cardiacs, is now the singer and guitarist in Gong. He plays guitar on a track. A guy called Chris Catalyst, who plays in Eureka Machines and the band Ghost. He plays guitar and bass on a track. And I've got a woman called Kirsty McGee, who plays musical saw on the final track of the album. So yeah.
Musical saw.
Oh, yeah, it's so beautiful, yeah.
Is there an instrument that you would like to learn?
Musical saw, yeah, absolutely. I have toyed with the idea in the past. I've got to the point where I actually had a saw and a bow in the basket of...
This was during a DIY project.
Well, it doesn't have teeth, unfortunately. The
musical saw. They're a dedicated musical saw.
No, it's a real instrument.
Oh, right, so you just can't go to B&Q and pick one up.
No, I mean, you might get a note out of it, but it's basically, it's like a very pliable metal, and it's like a saw shape, but it doesn't have any, teeth on it. and you play it with like a violin bow. But it's such a gorgeous sound, very, sort of theremin-ish, very ethereal sounding, but kind of I find it quite emotive as well, so yeah.
So you're already thinking about where can I fit this in? What song would this work with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have the time. I've just recently acquired a bass and a guitar, which I have very rudimentary skills on, but enough to record ideas for songs. And I'm just like, Carol, you really can't learn any more instruments. Like, just get better at piano primarily. You can do what you need to do on bass and guitar to record ideas, and then just focus on that,
We can't do everything, can we? There has to be a point where you say, right, there's someone better at that than me, so bring them in.
And I did have a theremin for a while as well. I did try and learn theremin. But again, yeah, I mean, the one I had was a really small one, so it was kind of, theremins are one of those instruments, like the bigger they are and the more expensive they are, the easier they are to play because you've got more of a range of movement. But the one I had, I mean, obviously I wanted to learn Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys, but it was literally like, the movement was like that. It was so tiny, and I just didn't have the patience to learn it. Whereas if I had a big one, I'd be able to sort of move the notes like that. Yeah.
Okay, Kev, right, we're about to getting close now to winding it up so that I can let you go off and enjoy yourself, because it is Strummercamp. You're not just here just to work. If people want to find out more about you, if they want to buy tracks, CDs, merch and that, what's the best way to find everything out?
Well, to purchase from me directly, my website is carolhodge.co.uk. It's Carol without an E. So I have an online shop there. I'm also on Bandcamp, and my music is available in all the usual streaming sites for free.
Well, thank you, Carol. That's been wonderful. Thank you for taking the time out.
Thank you.
Will we see you again at Strummercamp one day?
Well, yeah, if I get asked, I'll be back, yeah.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank
you, Carol. Thank you for watching and listening to the podcast. Use the links in the description below to find more detailed information about the bands or on how to buy tickets for next year's Strummercamp Music Festival. Don't forget to check out the other videos and podcasts available on this channel in the Strummercamp Music Festival playlist.